Hey everybody, Dr. Nicholas Thomas here. I just finished recording an episode of The Hospitality Spirit with two great guests from the private club industry. Eric Kirkenmeier is the general manager of Soho House Chicago, and Viviana Radenbaugh is head of people and development for Chicago and Toronto for Soho House. We covered a wide variety of topics, including their current roles within the organization, trends that the private club industry is seeing, how private clubs differ from other segments of hospitality, and advice for students looking to make a career in this great industry. I hope you enjoy. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Nicholas Thomas here, recording live at the Corner Estate in Jackson. It is the Hospitality Spirit podcast. Continuing with the theme of hospitality and tourism, looking at the different segments of our amazing industry, we've decided to venture into the private club sector a little bit today. We've done very well having multiple guests on simultaneously, and we are going to do that once again today. I've got Eric and Viviana here from Soho. They are going to talk about a lot of different things today. But as we get started, why don't we start with just some very brief introductions of who you are and what your current role is with the organization. Viviana, why don't you start?
Hi, I'm Viviana. I'm the head of people and development for Soho House Chicago and Toronto.
Okay.
And I'm Eric Kirkenmeier. I'm the general manager of the Soho House in Chicago.
So Viviana, what does that mean when, I think I know what it means when you say head of people and development, but maybe for those that are somewhat new to the nomenclature used in your organization, but also in hospitality and tourism, what does that actually mean?
So I oversee the human resources department for Chicago, and I just started actually 3 months ago overseeing the Toronto property.
Okay. And Eric, in terms of your role and responsibility as GM of Soho Chicago, what does that really entail just at a high level?
Sure. So I have a hand in basically everything that goes on in the house. We are a food and beverage heavy house. We have 40 hotel rooms, bedrooms, so it's not as big as a downtown hotel where you have 400 rooms and there's a ton to go on with that, or a ton to do with that. So while a hand in every single department, my expertise is in food and beverage. My background's in food and beverage, and that's where I'm kind of offering the most help and the most face time each day in those departments.
That's interesting. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg scenario? Is it you really wanted to kind of go into private club industry and you were drawn to that industry, or were you kind of pulled to Soho House because of your F&B background?
The latter, yeah. I was actually in the neighborhood working at the Ace Hotel as the food and beverage director. And before that, I was the general manager of Swift & Sons, which is a big steakhouse in the West Loop.
It's a fantastic steakhouse.
Fantastic, yeah. And the need of Soho and kind of the food and beverage portion of the house matched up really well with my background. So it was a good next step for me. And I'd always wanted to be a GM of a hotel and of a full building like this. So a good natural step for me, but it also worked out really well with what Soho needed.
So Viviana, talk a little, for those that are not familiar with Soho, talk a little bit about it's got multiple houses within the organization. What makes it unique? What makes it different from other private clubs that are out there in terms of who you look for in member, what that experience for the member is like, et cetera?
Yeah, so the big, difference is the component of being a members club for creative people. So you have to be a creative in the industry in order to join the club. So in Chicago, we have a lot of clubs in finance, for attorneys, for more of those structured positions. And for us, it's people in the creative industries.
When you say creative, I'm assuming you mean film, art, music, fashion. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes, absolutely. IT, chefs, anybody that uses creativity in the roles.
Is there a particular age demographic that you look at in that, or are you really across the board anybody that's...
Everyone is welcome. Yes, we do have two different types of memberships. So there is a membership that's called under 27, and it's half the price of the regular rate. And then we have the regular membership, which is the at large. But we welcome it to everybody.
Yeah, I'll point out that the other night I had dinner, drinks, and then it turned into more drinks and more dinner with a woman who's been on film sets for 25, 30 years, and she's definitely on the older side of our membership and was as interesting as anyone I've ever met, and someone that contributes to the house in a totally different way than someone who's under 27. So that's kind of a cool way to round ourselves out. And she's also someone that, mentors younger people who are looking for ways to progress themselves in their careers.
That's interesting. What, in terms of the difference, we talk about in some of our courses here in the School of Hospitality Leadership about the different segments of hospitality. What is it that really sets the private club segment of hospitality apart? I mean, what are some of the key differences that you've found, especially as you've transitioned from food and beverage operations?
Sure. I think the private club aspect for the members, it's all about the community. So there is definitely a different onus on creating relationships and creating opportunities for each other within the business, and we have things like a tech club or a music club where then you become, it's possible to have the marriage of the two. So for example, like the music club wants to do something where they want to create a song or a podcast or whatever, and the tech club actually gets involved in helping them make that happen. And I think that doesn't necessarily go on in, say, like Ace's lobby. You don't have the marriage of the two. So that's been a really cool way for members to find value and a different inroad to what their ultimate goal is through the club.
Interesting. So with that being said, do you compete with other segments of hospitality, or do you compete with,
So that's what, I can talk all day about that, because that is absolutely where we are trying to set ourselves apart.
The club essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost becomes an extension of their own home.
Mm-hmm. And we call it the home away from home.
Yeah.
And we actually have so many Chicago members that stay in the house. So they'll use it as a way to just escape and do a little staycation. They'll use it as a way to remodel their house and then be in our house. And it should feel that way. It should feel like a place that you belong, and there's a little more incentive to come and spend your time there.
It's interesting. So Viviana, it's, Eric was pointing out that the private club experience is so different from what we see in other segments of hospitality, be it going to a restaurant or going to stay at a hotel. What are the implications then from a hiring standpoint that you look for in your employees, associates?
If somebody walks in and they're looking, let's say a DePaul graduate, we have quite a few, and they usually start with the hotel side. They want to work at the front office or in the club reception side. If it's a chef, they could work in the chicken shop if they're starting, or they might want to work in the alleys, which is the restaurant open to the public. So for them, it's interesting to have the ratings, right, that you have through Yelp or through different mystery shoppers. Or you can work in the club, or you can work in the roof. If we're looking at servers, depending on the type of service they like. If they like the tea service, that's where they will go for the alleys. Or if they want more casual, could be the chicken shop. If it's somebody that's creative, that is looking to build that relationship with the members, because at the end of the day, their true goal could be like film or it could be fashion, probably a good fit will be the club, because we want them to build relationship with our members. We want that when the member comes, they know the people, they actually have conversations that they can bond with. So those creative people, they work very well. And as we know in Chicago, a lot of restaurants hire people that are actors or actresses or just people in the creative industries, because the restaurant business works well with the schedules.
That's interesting, because I remember when I was in hotel school, a lot of kind of that first year you're in hospitality school, you're thinking, okay, I know I want to go into hospitality, I'm just not sure exactly what I want to do. And then that slowly evolves into, okay, I know I want to go into the hotel side, or I know I want to go into the restaurant side. And then it kind of slowly starts to evolve into, okay, what kind of organization do I want to go work for? Do I want to go work for something in an urban environment, something in a more rural environment? Do I want to deal with the leisure traveler? Do I want to deal with the business traveler? And it seems like for someone that kind of wants a little bit mixture of everything, the private club industry works really well. But I think what's really attractive, I think, for students that are listening to this is the fact that you get to form that relationship with the guest. Whereas in a hotel, you might have a transient guest that you see for 24, 48, 72 hours, and you might never see them again. Where the private club industry, you see them, you get to know them, you get to know what their habits are, you get to know what their preferences are, and it really provides a great rewarding experience for the employee, but as well as the guest.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of our employees, they build strong relationships. I mean, some of them have left us and now are working for those members, or some of them are invited to those members like weddings, like some members, staff members like meet really at Soho House. That's what it is. It's creating that community. So I think employees really like that aspect. I mean, we opened almost 6 years ago next summer, and I would say we have still, out of the 300 employees that we opened, there's about like 80 that are still with us, and they like that component. But similar to back on our days when you didn't know what you wanted to do, like I had Jane who worked with us, started at the front desk with her internship, and then now she's in finance. And then I have other people that started at the front desk, and then they were like, oh, I like that membership side. I want to build relationship with members, and have moved into the club reception side, or started just for the summer job, and now they are either working membership or in the restaurant. So you still have that opportunity for sure.
Yeah, we're always on the lookout for new members. The ability to come experience the club, actually, if you stay, you have a pass for the day or for as long as your stay happens, to actually just use all the club spaces, the pool, 5th floor, gym, and that can be a way to attract someone who wanted to try us out. But the Alice Chicken Shop, the ground floor, essentially is a way to, introduce people to the building, introduce them to the service, and then maybe they're enticed to, come join, put their application through.
What's that process like if someone decides that they want to join? I mean, this is also one of the things I think that differentiates clubs in many cases. And for those that are listening that maybe haven't been involved in a private club, this idea of an application process, for lack of a better term. Can you just talk a little bit about, you don't have to give away the interview questions, if you will, but just what that process looks like?
We do it's a decently extensive application. But the idea is really about who you know. And I don't mean it in a very, Ivy League school, who do you know? What finishing club are you in? It's more so who's going to sponsor you that can speak to your qualities and why you would add to the club. So what we do is we have a member committee, which is led by our membership team and Autumn, who is our membership manager. And so far, the committee meetings that I've been in, it's really just talking to why that person is a valuable addition.
So where the club is located in the West Loop, this is an emerging area. We've got new companies coming into town all the time. With the growth, let's say, of the old post office building here, we've got corporate headquarters moving in from the suburbs. There's a pretty good chance that somebody might not have an extensive network. What do they do in that situation if they want to join the house?
Yeah. What we're actually probably looking for then is that you've made an effort to go out and make connections, make friendships, and find a couple people that belong to the house, and maybe you grabbed a coffee with them. Maybe, went and played basketball with them, whatever it is, to just kind of get yourself in the community. And our members are really open. They are so helpful. They are all about strengthening that community. So they're really okay with meeting people to say, hey, yeah, this person could be a valuable part of the club. And I think we're looking for just that little bit of effort so that you're not just like, hey, application like Midtown Athletic Club or Equinox or whatever, and you're just going to accept me because I put an application in. It's more so, have you made the effort to make connections to build your network? It doesn't have to be insane. It just has to be something that we feel confident that other people are going to want to be around you.
Sure. Viviana, if someone's listening to this and they say, this is the kind of environment that I want to work in, but I don't have a hospitality degree, didn't go to hospitality school, is this an industry that they can still enter into and be successful and have really rewarding careers?
Absolutely. We get applications all the time from people not from the hospitality industry, and some people just start sometimes just because they're looking for something new, and then they end up loving it. So I think this is actually the industry that you really don't have to have had that previous experience or that schooling. We will teach you.
And when we look at the data for retention, we see people actually staying and not turning over as quickly in the private club sector because it really is a rewarding environment to work in at the end of the day.
Yeah, I can say it this way. Going back to Viviana's point about making connections with members as an employee, you are also beholden to making sure that they're happy on a daily basis. That's part of it, right? Like if they have a special coffee order, we want you to know that so that every time they come in, you get it right for them. But you also do get to form these relationships, and that can be something that doesn't happen at random hotel X's lobby, and it can be really a cool part of your job.
Do you see seasonality in the private club industry in terms of peaks and valleys and usage? And does that exist on a monthly basis? Is that it the traditional during the week and on the weekends?
I would guess that if you polled most of the city and said, hey, what do you know about Soho? They'd say, well, they have a rooftop pool. And so with that being said, it's completely seasonal as far as everyone rushes up there during the warm months in Chicago, as you'd expect. But that creates its own huge set of challenges with hiring, managing, staffing, and trying to make that as good as possible for 5 months where you haven't practiced for 7 months. So
Soho has locations around the world. What are some of the other locations where you have properties, and are they all relatively the same in terms of the amenities that they offer, or are they dramatically different, whether they're in Europe and here in North America?
So in North America, we're right now in New York. We have about, I think, 3 properties there. We're in California. We are in Miami. We're in Toronto. We're looking at more openings in North America. We are in Barcelona. We have lots of houses in London. We are in Mumbai. We're in Hong Kong. We just had an opening there. So we are definitely growing very quickly across the globe. What was the part 2?
How are they different? How are they?
Yes. So
in terms of feel, in terms of look, in terms of, I'm assuming the membership qualifications are relatively similar.
I can speak to that.
Yeah.
There are different levels of what is offered in the house. So like Viviana touched on, we have every aspect. We have a spa, we have a hotel, we have a gym, we have a club level. So for Toronto, for her other house that she oversees, it's just a members club, and there's no hotel attached. The other range of amenities difference can be something like the Manhattan Soho is 5-star all the way. It's palatial rooms and all the amenities, and you'll feel like maybe you're more in the peninsula, in Chicago, compared to maybe our house is a little bit more cozy and a little bit more Midwestern in that way. And then we have something like Farmhouse in the UK, where everyone literally gets their own house out on a farm, and you'll have fresh milk brought to you from the cows on the farm. They put galoshes outside your door, and they have a bike that has your name on it for however long you're staying.
That's
so
awesome.
We range. But I would say that our rooms are all very similar in terms of we have tons of product and cowshed products, and we really want you to feel completely and utterly at home. And that doesn't necessarily change anywhere you go.
In terms of reciprocal agreements with other non-Soho clubs, does Soho participate in that? If so, do you see a lot of people coming from other non-Soho clubs into the house here in Chicago?
The way that functions for us is more so along the lines of membership and partnerships with people who do other cool things. So, for example, maybe we have an artist who's producing an installation for New Year's Eve, and we offer them a membership to be part of that party. But they don't necessarily have a club per se. They just then bring in their people, and they maybe host their meetings there, and then all of a sudden the network grows from them doing that stuff in the house. But we don't necessarily go out to other membership clubs and say, hey, our people are going to stay with you. Can you stay with us? It's a little bit different than that. It's more along the lines of individual entities.
And that seems to work for you. I mean, that seems to work really well, particularly with who you look for in terms of your stereotypical member.
Yeah, it's cool because it just does build another web of people that might not have applied, but now are in the house and creating a network of their own. And, you know, if you think about, so again, go to like another party, if you think about us offering a membership to our costume designer for Halloween in exchange for doing the costumes, well, that person might never have applied to Soho, but now the membership base there has an inroad with someone who knows costume design. And I've been wanting to do that on my movie set forever. Can you help me with that? And that's how that relationship builds.
So it seems like the houses get very involved in the community that they're in. I mean, is it too cliche to just say, to kind of talk a little bit about your corporate social responsibility and some of the things that you do maybe here in Chicago to help benefit the community?
Sure.
So that's key, bringing the community into the house. That's what Soho House is about. So not only from obviously the HR side, it's the recruiting, but what Eric talked about, like the member events. We have events, it's about bringing Chicago into the house, right? Like the members that are for Chicago, it's people that live here in Chicago. That's where all the different clubs or all the different collaborations, specifically as to like helping that community could be like going to school or internally, like we'll go to the Ronald McDonald House and serve meals, or we might partner with a member and fix a garden through the summer. So there's definitely a focus.
Yeah, and I would say people maybe have sort of a skewed view that we're very insular, but I would actually argue it's the opposite. We are very open, and we want people to connect with us, and we try to connect with people. And then I'll say the cool thing about being a global brand is, for example, like right now I'm in talks with somebody from LA who wants to come do a vintage clothing pop-up, but in return will also host a coat drive while DJs are performing. So it's like, there's this really cool thing where how would we have ever otherwise made that connection to, you know, this clothing store in LA other than the Soho network? It just probably wouldn't happen. And now you have someone who's willing to do charitable work, make a cool member event, and spread sort of the LA to Chicago connection that probably would have never happened otherwise.
How much of these initiatives, Eric, is you and your leadership team within the organization coming up with ideas like that versus members coming to you and saying, I'm a member, this club is as important to me as it is to you, I think you should do this? I mean, how do you balance that, and what's that trade-off?
I can say this. I can only, of course, speak completely, with my knowledge of the Chicago house, like completely to that house. And I know that in other houses like LA, for example, I think members are a lot more like, I want to do. We kind of like beg and plead our members, like, please host an event, do a talk, host a dinner, whatever it is. But we do have a full membership team and a member events team that are putting something on the calendar nearly every single day of the month. And they are sort of from management outward to include people and make interesting things happen. Health and wellness classes, business related classes like entrepreneurship and how to make money with your business, monetize your things, your art, and then also just fun like mixers too. So there's that side of it, and then members will come to us and say, okay, so I want to host a dinner talking about entrepreneurship. Can I be the focal point? And we're super excited when people want to do that because that adds to the community.
That's great. I think one of the questions that I think keeps coming back to me is, to really ensure that member experience, do you have to cap the membership? I mean, do you have a degree in economics, so I don't need to explain supply and demand to you, but where's that trade-off and that balance for, we want to keep growing the club, but we don't want to get to a point where a member's not going to be able to take advantage of it because you're too saturated?
What an interesting problem and a really dynamic one that we have to tackle basically every day. I mean, we're lucky. We have a ton of square footage. So again, I can only speak to the Chicago House and say that we have room to grow. But we are very particular about making sure everyone who's added does bring something cool and valuable to the house. So we go back and forth with that because Chicago being such an industrious city in terms of finance, medicine, law, and how big those firms are, we go, well, do we sort of just open our doors even more? And maybe you're a graphic designer that works at a big accounting firm. Does that count? And so we have to kind of ask ourselves those questions all the time. Currently, there's still plenty of people who want to join, and so we just want to find people that work best for us and are cool. And we haven't had to go down the route yet of capping anything, and I don't think we will for a while.
Sure. Viviana, if back to this idea of having a career in the private club industry, I think a lot of students, when they graduate from hospitality programs or whatever program of focus they have and they're ready to start, they're really curious what 3, 5, 10 years out is going to look like. And for many students, and I think it's kind of evolving, they don't necessarily want to stay in the same place over the next 5 to 10 years. Do you see people and are there opportunities within Soho to move around to the different locations?
Yes.
Almost like the Club Med model of you stay someplace for 6 months and then you move on to someplace else. And does that exist within Soho?
Yeah, it does. It does from the large scale as to you're transferring permanently to another house to, for example, last week we had about 20 of our employees that went to help out to Miami for Art Basel. So from membership managers to club receptionists to servers, bartenders that went there just for a full week to help out during that big event of art. So then you get a little taste, right, as to do I want to transfer there permanently or it was just a great experience but I'm back to my main house. I love it because they go there, they work very hard and then they come back, and I'm very proud to say that Chicago, it's a great house, and they're like, oh my God, we love it here in Chicago, our family meal is so great. So it's a good recharge too. But they, like when we open downtown LA or when we open in New York, those opportunities are definitively there. If you want to go just for a taste, we help out at other festivals like through North America, or if you actually want to transfer permanently, the option is there. Our assistant general manager actually opened Soho House Chicago. He was a hospitality graduate and opened as housekeeping manager, then moved into the cowshed as an assistant manager, and then went to Barcelona, opened that property, was there for about a year, and then returned, was the main manager for our spa cowshed, and then now he's our assistant general manager. So there is definitely room for growth depending on where you want to go. I personally started thinking I wanted to be a GM and went the food and beverage route, and then HR said to me, oh, you should be in HR. And I was like, oh, okay. I really wanted hours at that point that were stable. And it ended up working out because I ended up being in the hospitality industry, but supporting people from the back of the house, which I really love. But I think you start and then you figure out your path. And I'm in Chicago, but I'm from Peru, so you could end up anywhere.
And I'd love to just speak a little bit to it, too. I've never been a part of something where there are as many people who are there for 5, 10 years, 15 years. It's really cool to see, and I think it speaks to how great of a company Soho is that people have found a home. But when I interview young people or people who are just kind of sorting out their path, I think one of the easiest catchphrases these days is, I want a place to grow. And I go, okay, what does that mean to you?
Sure.
Because the truth of the matter is that in a global brand like this, you have to be willing to move. It's very rare that you're just going to start as a server, and then you're a floor manager, and then you're an AGM, and then you're a GM, all in the same house, all just going blah, 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 blah. So people who are saying, I want to grow, I'm like, okay, are you ready to make sure your life is kind of mobile and you're up for whatever challenge gets offered to you? Because that happens a lot. That happens a lot with us too. We're like, we need to play, we need someone in Miami. You ready? Yeah. If you say yes a lot, you'll be good. You'll grow.
That's great advice. What sort of trends are you seeing now in it's kind of tough to say. The question is, what kind of trends are you seeing in the private club industry? But the Soho experience and product is somewhat different than what we see in other private clubs. But maybe just generally, what are you what are you kind of seeing on the horizon with your members in terms of what they're looking for with that experience at the house?
Sure. I guess I'll frame it in terms of what we're in competition against. It, again, used to be when the product opened up in 2014, when Soho opened up, our product was really kind of unique. The idea that you had this club space that you could just come and drink water and use the Wi-Fi if you wanted to, or you could come and have a full-blown $500 meal and get nice bottles of wine and, stay all night and party. Those both existing in the space were like, whoa, that's kind of really cool. That feels really interesting. Now there's a lot more of that available, that inventory. You think about something like the Hoxton opening close to us or Ace Hotel opening close to us, and you can have sort of that same experience for free, for no membership. It's not exactly the same. I think we offer a better product, but you can do it without the membership. And I think the trend is now, how does everybody shift a little bit in their business model from lobby lounge, easy going, you can drink a coffee or not, to offering something different? And what's the next thing on the horizon? What's going to entice people to be in your space more than everyone else's space?
Particularly if you have somebody that they've immersed themselves into the house and they get older. And
all the time.
Their preferences change, what they look for change. They have kids, They start a family, but they still want to be involved in the club. So what they're looking for in the club evolves and it changes. And that sounds like a tricky balance to have to follow.
I can tell you this little anecdote. People say to us all the time, like, oh, I miss how wild the club used to be. And I look at them and I go, oh, okay, well, do you want to do a body shot right now, like on the bar? And they're like, no, I got to get home to my kids. And you're like, well, okay, there it is, So it has evolved, and we think about it all the time in Chicago House too, especially because, again, going back to us being an industrious city, we have a lot of people who come in, they get their coffee, they open up their laptop, and they're good for the day. And you're like, are you sure you don't want a 3 martini lunch? Because we would love to serve that to you, but they don't have that attitude towards it anymore, because maybe something different, shifted in their life. So that's part of the U27 initiative for us. We're always trying to bring in people who are kind of in another stage in their life, and there's people who move on all the time, and that's okay. I mean, that's natural.
Sure.
And that's where it's key for the members team to really focus on tonight we're going to have the whiskey dinner, but then there's this great DJ in this other room, and as they come up with the events, it has to be for all walks of lives and all different interests. Oh, you like food, but you like fashion. So that's what they work hard. We have, 3 people in that team, and that's what they do. They make sure that there's an event for everyone, because I think when the members comes in, what do we offer that the Hoxton doesn't is those member events. That's why they return.
I mean, it almost becomes an a la carte menu of what you're going to like. And
I mean, when our newsletter goes out, or our what we call House Happenings goes out, the whole idea is that you have tons of stuff that you can choose from. And say you try to be in the house 5 nights a month. Okay, pick your 5 most favorite events and come for those. And that's perfect for us. So we do try to give everyone as many options as possible. And there's a lot of recurring things that are really cool. We have something called Fight Night every other month, where literally members get to box each other. And you go, okay,
first rule of Fight Night is not talking about it.
We're talking about it. And you say, where else does that happen? There's almost nowhere else, right? And so we have cool stuff like that. And maybe you choose that every single one of those, I'm going to be there for that. And I'm going to meet the crowd that's there, and they're maybe more athletically skewed. And then we end up taking classes together and all that sort of stuff. Or like Viviana saying, our fashion events get huge draw. And maybe that's how you make your network happen. So we try to offer a little bit for everybody.
That sounds exciting. So, Eric, you talked a little bit about the importance of being able to be remote. Got a bag packed, when duty calls, you go. As we kind of wrap up here, maybe Viviana, you could go first. Just one piece of advice that you'd give for somebody that is listening to this that says, you know what, I'm looking for the challenge. I really like the idea of forming great relationships with guests or members in this case, what's that one piece of advice that you're going to give to somebody who maybe wants to go into this segment of hospitality and tourism?
I would say take the job. If it's a front desk agent, a club receptionist, a server, stick with it, be the best at it, and then those next positions will come up. I think where I see kind of like the issue is when we get antsy or that ideal, like I want to be the GM. Well, in order to be the best GM, you really need to do these other jobs, right? And the positions will come your way, as Eric said, and then say yes, take that opportunity, jump, go to Miami, go to LA, go to New York, do those task force, be open. I think that's key. If you're open-minded and you're not scared and you say, let's go for it, I think the opportunities will be right there.
That's great. Eric, another piece of advice that you'd have for aspiring private club?
Yeah, to piggyback on that, what I love about the industry and why it has kept me in it and why it always attracted me is because it was always about what you've done, the experience you've gained. It was never about where you went to school, who you knew, who your dad knew. It was literally like, did you put in the time and effort? Did you make an impact? Were you the best at the position that you had at the moment? Because usually that's what led to the next promotion, the next big thing, the next challenge. And I fell in love with that part of it. The instant gratification is really cool too. Getting to see someone on someone's face right then and there, like, oh my God, they had a great time. I made that happen was huge. But I really started to fall in love with the fact that the network you build, the experiences you have, and how good of a job you do is everything.
That's great advice. Eric, Viviana, thank you so much for taking some time this afternoon to talk with us about Soho, to talk with us about your career, to talk with us about how listeners who want to go into this segment of the industry can be successful. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Recorded live at the corner of State and Jackson, this is Dr. Nicholas Thomas with the Hospitality Spirit. Thanks for listening.